Hi everyone. These are the slides for this week, and they are broken up into 3 days as usual. But of course, you can complete them at what works best for you. All right. So let's look at day one. Added a checklist, right? So today you are checking in. Actually, that's optional, but it's nice to see what people are up to or learn something new about them. If you haven't done your gallery walk feedback, please do that. We're going to go over the PowerPoint, and then you are going to post to guess my setting. So, we just went over those pretty much. The setting. So, when you are writing stories, the setting is actually one of the most important decisions you will make, right? It can add so many things like a mood. Is it a bright and cheerful place? Is it a gloomy dystopian place? Is it a parallel universe with um, slight changes compared to our world? It can make tension, right? If it's a survival setting, it can cause conflict. If it's like a war or some kind of survival again, it can steer the plot, the characterization, and even provide backstory. So, if you go with the first thing that comes to your mind, often you can rob the story of so much. So, locations are frequently used in books and films um, can also bore the readers. So, let's look at story elements of setting. So, it gives you time and place, physical world, and the social world. So, many layers in the setting, right? Um, the setting is the time and place of the action in a fictional story. It's kind of like, when your friend is trying to tell you a story and they don't give you the setting. A lot of times you'll say the context. Someone will say, and then he threw the pasta and it's stuck against the wall. And you're like, wait a second. What are you talking about? You've got to give the reader or the person listening to the story a place and a time in which to imagine the story that's unfolding. So, 1 and 2, we talked about physical world, time of action, the character's social environment, like what is for middle school, like what is going on among the kids? What's the social hierarchy? Who are the groups of kids interacting? Right? What are the expected behaviors? That would be social environment. For some reason, I think of Pride and Prejudice, right? All those manners and the little social etiquettes were so important to that story, right? The social environment was key. So the physical world. So this is where you want to describe the scenery, the place. You don't have to have all of these little pieces in it. But you want to give as much as what's important to the story. Sometimes in longer stories, might be more revealed in depth as you go on, but you really want to set the stage for the reader in which to have these characters um, go forward and try and achieve their goals, right? So let's see. Some words you might use for physical world include city, state, country, castle, cottage. It could be a boardroom, Walgreens. So many different ways to have physical world. So time can be, it doesn't have to be time of year. It could be, depending on your story, it could be way in the future. It could be a specific time of year if that's important to your story. If it's like winter because you're talking about the snow and surviving and climbing, glaciers, then that would be important. So timing, it depends on what the action's going on what kinds of information you want to include about time. And then we touched on social environment of the setting includes manners, customs, and norms, right? The moral values. So like if the social environment was set currently with COVID-19, some of the customs or moral values might be about how the character is protecting itself and others from infection, right? Something like that. Are they wearing a mask? Oh, no, that's awful, right? So in this, that you'd have to put, if you were talking about COVID, you need to be clear that was the setting, and this is what's the expected expectation, right? And that can vary from whatever your setting is to setting. If you're talking in the future, they might have different concerns and customs and manners. If you're talking in the past or a different culture. So some words at the bottom you might include for social environment might be traditions, customs, norms, values, manners. Okay. Here's a checklist. I'm not going to go through it, but you can always look back at it. And just for a little bit of background for you about mood and tone, because they also impact the setting. The mood, and these are really subtle differences. So the mood is the feeling the piece of literature gives you when you read it, right? Does it make you feel happy and lighthearted? Is it, humorous? Or does it make you feel dreary? It's, dystopian and dark and bleak. So that would be mood. The tone is slightly different. It's the writer's attitude towards the audience or how they present their story. So maybe they're making fun of something, like they think something is silly and they're kind of showing that, right? Tone is a little more complex in a way, but let's think about mostly about mood, I think, in your setting. That would be good to focus on. So here's a couple of examples. So in setting, for the mood in the story, for example, here are two pictures illustrating mood, right? So if you're talking about a story when two kids are playing hide and seek, right? Here are the different settings. Here is a little cute cottage with lots of lights. So it seems magical, right? Whereas on the right, here is another, cottage deep in the woods, and it's foggy and dark, and it looks like things are dripping on the building, right? The mood is really much more scary or dreadful. So you can see. Okay, so this illustrates the difference in mood between a setting that might be both cottages, but there are details that are different that make you feel different. Let's look at the next setting. So, this is for tone. So this story is about a group of politicians trying to pass a law, and the visuals represent how the author feels towards it. So if you look towards these politicians trying to make laws, if you look on the left, he would describe the setting as stately and orderly, elegant. So that gives a certain feel to it, a tone. Whereas on the right, he might describe the setting, or she, as more like a circus, right? An act and a charade. Maybe it's, foolery. And that shows how they feel about this. All right, I'm sorry about the noise. Got some work going on at our house. So in order to visualize the setting, you have a good author will include descriptions of the setting using sensory imagery, right? They're appealing to our senses the senses of sound, sight, taste, touch, and smell. So as many as you can of these incorporate that seems fitting, do so, and it will make your setting much more vivid. So sorry about the background noise. I am working near construction, so I'm going to do the best I can. All right, so I'm going to go through, we're almost done, with one sensory imagery. There's two. I'll read one of them to you, and you can see the difference when you bring in those sensory details. So you could describe the setting as it was foggy beside the water, or you could say the waves crashed loudly against the shoreline. The fog broke for a moment as the wind brushed over the cliffs. The castle came into view, a grand stone fortress standing above the ridgeline. The fog brushed my face in cool droplets, and I could smell smoke from the distant fire. Sea salt graced my lips. I walked towards the fortress, wondering what mysteries and treasures might be found behind those walls. So, which one do you think is better, right? The one with lots of details that puts you in that place physically, or the one that just describes it briefly? So, for day one, guess my setting. What I'd like you to do is to brainstorm a list of 10 possible locations. They can be real or imaginary. They can have some personal meaning to you, for you, or from a character's perspective that you have in mind. Play with different elements of light and weather, shadows, customs, and norms. Try to find one that you think will really help strengthen your story or offer readers a fresh experience. And then using, too, your power of descriptions, and pick one of the settings from your list and describe it using as many sensory images as possible. Please do not name what it is, because 3, you'll post it onto our discussion entitled Guess My Settings, and then other people will try and guess. It's fine if it is a specific place that people can guess, and it's also fine if it's completely fantasy and they can just kind of try and describe what they think it is. All right, thank you. See you later.